Let's walk through a few common terms and concepts that you'll encounter in IT service management. First, let's start with utility as well as warranty. Utility refers to what a service actually does for an end user, customer, or stakeholder, both in functionality and in purpose, essentially what the service does. Warranty, on the other hand, is the assurance that the service that is being used will meet agreed upon expectations. This could include factors like reliability, performance, uptime, and overall quality. Warranties are often backed by something like an SLA or service level agreement. We'll talk about those later in this course, but they essentially specify different standards such as how quickly issues or requests need to be resolved. Now let's talk about costs. In IT service management, there are two broad categories of costs that you'll want to understand. The first is known as CapEx or capital expenditures. These are more large upfront investments such as purchasing a bunch of different computers or software licensing. Second is OpEx, or operational expenditures. These are ongoing costs like subscriptions, maintenance, or cloud usage fees. One important trend in IT service management, as well as business in general, is that companies are starting to lower their CapEx and increasing their OpEx due to many services and products being sold on a strict subscription or usage basis nowadays. And for example, if you were using something like Netflix on your home TV, you would have something like an operational expenditure since that's a subscription. Since there's so many different subscriptions nowadays, we're seeing a huge increase in OpEx costs. We also classify service costs in two different ways. First, we talk about costs removed from the customer. For example, no longer needing to buy or manage your own servers. Those costs are no longer on us and we're not burdened by them. Think about it like this. Costs removed from the customer remove expenses, and costs imposed on the customer add expenses. Next up is risk. And just like costs, services also affect risk in two different ways. First is risks removed from the customer, such as improving overall security, productivity, maintaining backups, or providing fault intolerance. The second is risks imposed on the customer, such as vendor lock-in, limited customization, or even outages. Service management needs to strike a balance between costs as well as risks to provide the most functionality as well as reliability. Then we have services, which are a huge topic in IT service management. A service enables value by helping users, stakeholders, or customers achieve a specific outcome. A service provider is an organization, department, team, group of people, or person responsible for delivering a specific service. A service is an offering of a packaged set of products, access, services, or support, essentially what the customer actually receives. A service level agreement, known as an SLA, is a documented agreement between a service provider and a customer that defines the expected level of service. It outlines performance targets, responsibility, as well as metrics. We're going to talk about these all throughout this course, so you'll hear that quite a bit. A service organization is one whose primary role is to provide services. This could be something like an IT service organization that provides IT support to multiple different companies' internal employees. These services and offerings are supported by a larger framework known as the four dimensions of service management. This is an ITIL concept that we'll talk about later in this course. This model helps us ensure that services are delivered consistently, efficiently, and that they provide real business value. The four dimensions that you need to know are organizations and people. This covers roles, responsibilities, culture, as well as structure. Then we have information and technology. This is the systems, tools, and data that helps us support service delivery. From there, we have partners and suppliers, which are any third parties from outside of our organization that help contribute to the service that we're offering. And finally, we have value streams and processes, which are the workflows and practices that drive how value is created. Each dimension helps us see services as part of a system and not just an isolated part of service delivery. The next major ITIL concept that you'll need to know is Service Value System, or SVS. The SVS brings together all components of service management into a single structured model. The SVS includes the service value chain, or SVC, which represents the main activities that we need to do to convert inputs into outputs. The 34 practices, which are the processes that help us support service delivery, and they're divided into three categories known as general management practices, service management practices, and technical management practices. From there, we have governance, which helps us ensure that we're aligned with higher organizational goals, any sort of compliance, whether in the organization or required by an industry or government, as well as decision making. We'll cover all of these major ITIL topics in other sections and videos further in this course. And to recap, in this video, we learned about a lot of topics. First, we started by talking about utility, which is what a service does. Then we talked about warranty, which is how well a service performs. Then we discussed the two types of costs, including CapEx versus OpEx costs. We also covered risks, as well as all aspects of services, including what a service is, service providers, service offerings, service level agreements or SLAs, and service organizations. We also explored the ITIL concepts of the 4 dimensions of service management, as well as the service value system or SVS. All of these concepts are important as they start to build our foundation of ITSM, as well as introduce some of these major ITIL concepts.